When qualifying ended at the Australian Grand Prix, most of the focus immediately shifted to the usual questions about pace and grid position. But something else caught people's attention. As Lewis Hamilton stepped out of the car and spoke to the media, his tone sounded unusually concerned. This wasn't just the typical reaction of a driver who missed pole position by a few tenths. Hamilton's words hinted at something deeper, something about the way the Ferrari was behaving that could become a serious issue during the race. At first, the comments sounded like routine post-qualifying frustration. But when you listen closely to what he said and combine that with what we saw during the session, his warning starts to make a lot more sense. Qualifying itself had been intense from the beginning. The Albert Park circuit is one of those tracks where drivers must find confidence quickly. Grip levels evolve throughout the weekend, and the layout rewards drivers who can attack medium-speed corners with precision. The margins between drivers are often incredibly small. A tiny difference in braking, steering, or throttle timing can determine whether a lap ends up on the front row or several places further back on the grid. Hamilton's performance during the session showed flashes of competitiveness. At times, the Ferrari looked stable through the faster sections of the lap, and the car appeared capable of matching the pace of the frontrunners. But the final results suggested that something still wasn't perfectly aligned between driver and machine. That alone wouldn't be unusual. After all, Hamilton is still adapting to a new environment with Scuderia Ferrari. Drivers often need time to fully understand how a new car behaves at the limit. However, Hamilton's comments after qualifying hinted at a concern that went beyond simple adaptation. Instead of focusing only on the lap that had just happened, he began talking about how the car might behave during the race itself. That's where things start to get interesting. In Formula One, qualifying and race performance are often two completely different challenges. Qualifying is about extracting maximum speed over a single lap. The car is usually running minimal fuel, the tyres are fresh, and drivers push right to the edge of grip. The race, on the other hand, introduces an entirely different set of variables. Fuel loads are heavier, tyre degradation becomes a factor, and drivers must manage their pace over many laps rather than just one. When Hamilton suggested that something might become a problem later, it raised a key question. What exactly was he worried about? To understand that, we need to look at how Ferrari's car behaves during different phases of the lap. One of the most important aspects of modern Formula One cars is aerodynamic balance. Engineers must distribute downforce carefully between the front and rear of the car. Too much front downforce can make the car rotate quickly, but may cause instability under braking. Too much rear downforce can make the car stable, but resistant to turning. Drivers develop their style around these characteristics. Some prefer a car that rotates aggressively at corner entry, while others feel more comfortable with a stable rear that allows gradual rotation. Hamilton has historically been known for a very smooth driving style. He tends to manage tyre grip carefully and often relies on a balanced car that allows controlled inputs rather than sudden changes in direction. At Albert Park, maintaining that balance becomes particularly important. Several corners require drivers to brake heavily before transitioning quickly into medium-speed turns. During this phase, the car experiences significant weight transfer. The front tyres are loaded heavily during braking, while the rear becomes lighter. If the rear loses grip during this moment, the car can become unstable. Hamilton's comments suggested that the Ferrari might be behaving differently than he would ideally like during these transitions. This doesn't necessarily mean the car is slow. In fact, a car that rotates aggressively at the front can sometimes produce extremely fast qualifying laps. But that same characteristic can become difficult to manage during a long race stint when tyre wear becomes a factor. Imagine driving a car that feels very responsive when turning into a corner. At first, that responsiveness might feel like an advantage because the car rotates quickly and reaches the apex efficiently. But over a long run, that same responsiveness can place additional stress on the tyres. As the tyres degrade, the car may become more difficult to control. This could be part of what Hamilton was hinting at. During qualifying, the Ferrari may have delivered strong one-lap performance, but over the course of a race distance, managing tyre wear and maintaining consistent balance might become more challenging. Another factor worth considering is how drivers manage tyre temperatures. Tyres operate best within a very specific temperature range. If they become too hot, grip decreases and degradation accelerates. If they are too cold, the driver struggles to generate enough grip to attack corners confidently. Ferrari's car may behave in a way that places different demands on the tyres compared to what Hamilton experienced in previous years. If the car requires aggressive rotation at corner entry, the front tyres may experience higher stress. Over a long run, that could influence how quickly grip levels drop. This is why Hamilton's warning might carry more significance than it initially appeared. Drivers often have a very sensitive feel for how the car behaves during long runs. Even during qualifying sessions, they gather clues about how the car might perform later. But here's the interesting part. Sometimes the very characteristics that make a car difficult to manage in the race are also the characteristics that make it extremely fast over one lap. Teams constantly face this trade-off when setting up the car. A setup that maximizes qualifying speed might not be ideal for tyre management during the race. This creates an important strategic decision. Engineers must choose how to balance performance between qualifying and race conditions. If Hamilton believes the current balance leans too far toward qualifying performance, he may be concerned about how the car behaves during long stints. Another layer of this situation involves driver adaptation. Hamilton is known for his ability to adjust his driving style when necessary. Throughout his career, he has driven cars with very different aerodynamic philosophies. Sometimes he adapts quickly, while other times it takes several races to find the perfect rhythm with a new machine. Ferrari's car may require subtle changes to the way he approaches certain corners. For example, he might need to adjust braking points slightly or modify how he transitions from braking to steering. These changes might seem small, but they can have a significant impact on lap time and tyre management. Meanwhile, his teammate Charles Leclerc has spent several seasons driving Ferrari machinery and may already be comfortable with its characteristics. That familiarity can sometimes make a difference during qualifying sessions where drivers must operate right at the edge of grip. But the story of the race might be very different. Race pace depends on consistency, tyre preservation, and strategic decision-making. Hamilton has built much of his career on excelling in those areas, so when he expressed concern after qualifying, it might not simply have been frustration about a single lap. Instead, it may have been a signal that the team still has work to do to find the perfect balance between speed and stability. And this is where Formula One becomes so fascinating. Every session reveals small clues about how the car behaves under different conditions. Drivers interpret those clues through feel and experience, while engineers analyze them through telemetry and data. Sometimes those clues point to a deeper challenge that will only become visible later in the weekend. Hamilton's warning could be one of those moments. It might simply reflect the natural adjustment process of a driver joining a new team. Or it could hint at a setup challenge Ferrari must solve to maximize performance over the full race distance. Now the real question becomes what happens next. Will Ferrari find the balance Hamilton needs to feel fully confident in the car, or will the concerns he hinted at after qualifying become a factor during the race itself? That's the kind of storyline that keeps Formula One unpredictable. And now I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think Hamilton is right to be worried about Ferrari's race pace? Or do you believe the team will resolve these issues before the race begins? Let me know in the comments, because understanding these subtle signals from drivers is often the key to predicting how the rest of the weekend will unfold.